The vagus nerve is the most Googled body part of 2026. Cold showers, humming, gargling with salt water, special devices that zap the side of your neck. There are courses, protocols, morning routines, and entire Instagram accounts dedicated to one nerve. And I want to talk about it because I have spent 2 years watching wellness culture do to the vagus nerve exactly what it did to crystals, and the people being sold to deserve a clearer picture. So, is vagus nerve stimulation legitimate science? Yes. Is what you are being sold on Instagram legitimate science? That is a much more complicated question. And the answer matters. Let's start with the actual biology, because it is genuinely interesting and I think it deserves to be separated from what is being sold. The vagus nerve, the name comes from the Latin word for wandering, is the longest cranial nerve in the body. It runs from your brainstem down through your neck into your chest and all the way to your abdomen. It connects your brain to your heart, your lungs, your digestive system. It is the main pathway of what is called the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery after stress. When it is working well, it helps bring you back to calm after something difficult. Heart rate slows, digestion resumes, the body recovers. Low vagal tone, meaning the nerve is less effective at doing this, is genuinely associated with anxiety, depression, and inflammation. This is real research. It exists, and there are medically validated vagus nerve stimulation treatments, implanted devices used in hospitals for treatment-resistant epilepsy and depression. Approved, evidence-based, real. So the nerve is real. The science is real. What happened to it on Instagram is something else entirely. Here is the problem. Medically validated vagus nerve stimulation involves precise electrical impulses delivered to specific nerve branches through implanted or clinical-grade devices. It is used for specific conditions under medical supervision with documented side effects. The claim that humming, cold face plunges, or specific breathing patterns can meaningfully and reliably tone your vagus nerve in a way that produces lasting clinical benefit. That claim is not well supported by robust research. There are small studies showing that certain techniques produce modest short-term changes in heart rate variability, which is one marker of vagal tone. But the leap from this breathing exercise temporarily shifted a measurable marker to you can heal your nervous system with a morning cold plunge. That is not a scientific leap. It is a marketing leap. And here is what wellness content does brilliantly. It takes the legitimate endpoint, a regulated nervous system, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and works backwards to a simple, daily, purchasable practice that promises to deliver it. The endpoint is real. The mechanism is vastly overstated, and the person who does the cold plunge every morning and still has anxiety is left, once again, wondering what they are doing wrong. I want to stop and ask why the vagus nerve specifically became such a massive wellness phenomenon, because I think it tells us something important. Previous wellness trends, crystals, astrology, human design, manifestation, operated in explicitly supernatural territory. You could dismiss them as woo if you were that way inclined. The vagus nerve is different. It is anatomical, it shows up on medical diagrams, it has a Latin name, it is discussed in neuroscience papers. It gives people who are skeptical of overt mysticism a way to be inside a nervous system healing framework without feeling like they have abandoned rational thinking. It is, in other words, the perfect product for a post-woo audience. People who have been burned by crystals and manifesting but still feel unwell, still feel anxious, still feel that their bodies are not quite right. The vagus nerve gives them a scientific-sounding container for the same need. That need is real. The anxiety is real. What is not demonstrated is that the specific solutions being sold are the answer. A lot of the vagus nerve content online draws on something called Polyvagal Theory, developed by neuroscientist Stephen Porges in the 1990s. It describes the nervous system in terms of three states: safety, mobilization, and shutdown. It has become enormously influential in trauma therapy. Here is what wellness content does not tell you. Polyvagal theory is significantly more contested in the scientific literature than its popular presentation suggests. Several neuroscientists have raised substantial critiques of its anatomical claims, whether the neural architecture Porges describes actually operates the way the theory requires. That debate is ongoing and unresolved. In wellness culture, it is presented as established fact. The nuance, the ongoing debate, the gap between clinical application and popular presentation, none of that makes it into the Instagram carousel. And people are making real decisions about their health based on a model being presented with far more certainty than the evidence base supports. That is not neutral. The vagus nerve trend does not exist alone. It sits inside a broader ecosystem: cortisol detox, somatic healing, freeze response work, regulated versus dysregulated content. And together they form a new language for a very old problem. The old problem is this: the wellness industry needs your suffering to be your responsibility, because your suffering is its product. If your anxiety is caused by structural conditions, overwork, financial pressure, a world that is genuinely difficult, then the cure is structural too. And there is nothing to sell. But if your anxiety is caused by a dysregulated vagus nerve that you have failed to tone through consistent daily practice, there is a great deal to sell. The nervous system wellness trend is a more sophisticated version of the same move that manifestation and shadow work made before it. It takes real physiological experience, stress, tension, poor sleep, and locates the cause inside your individual body rather than in the conditions your body is living in. And then it offers individual body-based solutions to what are often structural problems. Your body is not failing. It is responding correctly to conditions that are genuinely hard. I do not want to leave this as a pure demolition, because I think that would be dishonest. Slow, deep breathing does help. The physiological evidence for extended exhales activating the parasympathetic nervous system is solid. This is not a hack or a wellness discovery. It is why every contemplative tradition in the world uses breath as a central practice. It predates the vagus nerve by thousands of years. Cold water exposure has some evidence for short-term mood elevation. The mind-body connection is real. The central insight that the body holds the effects of chronic stress, that physical state and psychological well-being are connected, is true and important. What is not worth keeping is the framework that turns these genuine insights into a healing program you can fail at, sold by people whose income depends on your continued dysregulation. Here's the thing that I keep coming back to. Islamic tradition has understood the connection between physical state and spiritual and psychological well-being for 14 centuries. Wudu, the ritual washing before prayer, involves cold water on the face, neck, forearms, and feet, performed up to 5 times a day, with intention, with stillness, with a quality of attention that is different from the rest of the day. The movements of salah, standing, bowing, prostrating, sitting, are a physical practice as much as a spiritual one. Breath is involved. Posture is involved. The body is fully engaged. I am not saying wudu is a vagus nerve stimulation protocol. I am saying that a tradition which structures daily life around intentional breath, movement, physical contact with water, and moments of deliberate stillness, practiced within a framework of meaning rather than optimization, is offering something the nervous system genuinely needs. not as a wellness hack, as a way of living. The difference between that and a morning cold plunge you are doing to tone your vagus nerve is not just semantic. It is the difference between a practice embedded in a complete account of human life and a technique extracted from science, stripped of context, and sold as a solution to a problem the seller has a commercial interest in keeping unsolved. Your nervous system is doing its job. If it is responding with anxiety and tension and sleeplessness, it is responding to something real. The question worth asking is not, how do I tone my vagus nerve? It is, what are the conditions of my life, and which of them are within my power to change? That question is harder. It does not fit in a carousel. It cannot be answered by a device or a course. But it is the honest question. Start there. The breath will follow. If this landed for you, share it with someone who needs it. And if you want to go deeper, you can find me at silkan.space. I write about faith, neurodivergence, and clean living without the woo. See you in the next one.